I was really the first person to draw public attention to the fact that something was happening that we hadn't seen before.
Is enough being done to study people who have transgender treatment, including sometimes surgery, and then decide that they've changed their minds? The researcher at a British university had been prevented from carrying out such research because it was politically incorrect.
I began to see more and more people regretting gender transition, some of whom would take their doctors to court. And it was obvious that something was happening that we hadn't seen before. Around about 2012, 2013, we began to notice that there was a big change happening in the profile of the patients that we were seeing. And we were seeing many more younger people, and particularly young women, and people who were coming with really very complex mental health problems and a different kind of presentation to that which the gender field had been used to seeing for many, many years. And also on the rise were the numbers of people who were regretting their gender transitions. Now, there'd always been thought to be a small number of people who did regret gender transitions, but the field never really took a lot of interest in them. What I was trying to do was to give a voice to people who had not previously been heard, people who regretted and reversed their gender transitions. Now, there had been some very small studies into that, which are quite out of date, really. And they were with male to female transsexuals who'd reversed. I had been contacted by a group of young women who said, we want to qualify for your research, but we don't reverse our surgery. That was why I changed my research title slightly to include them. I wanted to include people who reverse transition without necessarily reversing surgery. The reason for that was that these young women had surgery which was removal of their breasts, double mastectomies. Reversal would have meant having implants, and they didn't do that for various reasons. They just didn't do it. They just lived with a flat chest and the scars that they had, and they told me that. So I wanted to give a voice and to start a conversation about what was happening with these people, because there were clearly rising numbers, rising numbers of them. If I had been allowed to complete the research, then I think, yes, it would have been a very, very useful way of bringing into the conversation what was happening and for people to take it seriously, because since then, many more people have spoken about the rising phenomenon of particularly very young women and girls who feel very unhappy with their gender and who have gone forward for treatment at the Portman and Tavistock Clinic. It was about a 4,000% increase over a few years, over several years. Basically, I've been faced with no alternative but to take this case to the European Court, because too much is at stake for academic freedom and for hundreds, if not thousands, of young people who are saying that they are being harmed and silenced by a rigid view that's become a kind of transgender ideology and permits no discussion. This is not about for or against a group of people. This is about revealing the truth of something, in order that we will follow good clinical practice and do no harm. And the thing that has most struck me is that people have been telling me that they have been harmed. Indeed, Kira Bell told the court that several weeks ago in her case. The argument for the need for this research is very obvious. It's not a complicated thing. So I was astonished that a university could censor a research project on the grounds of what people might post on social media, what people might say, that they might criticize, that above all, we must avoid criticism, even at the expense of much needed research. And if a university, which is a place for the exchange of ideas, discussion, dissent, questioning, research, and above all, critical thinking, is unable to tolerate the risk of criticism, where are then left the basic tenets of academic and intellectual freedom of inquiry? And I think that the implications for a democratic society of the suppression of information and discussion are deeply worrying.